Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules, and at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome back to another edition of BOA The Revival. It's the year in review with Greg Bishop. This is our 18th year doing this. So we started it in 2008, mostly UFOs, and it's sort of evolved over the years to include like every weird stuff that, all weird news, all paranormal happenings and stuff. So, it's a grand tradition. It might be, I think, the longest running traditional episode we do here on Binnall of America. So, always a pleasure. Welcome back to the show, Greg.
Hey, Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Ready to put the year behind me. It's a testament to that. We're taping this on December 26th at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's like, all right, let's just hurry up and get on, get on with ending this year.
Yeah, see what the apocalypse holds next year.
Exactly, yeah. Before we start, how have you been? Everything going all right out there in California? I saw you back in September, but, for the listeners, this is the first time they've heard from you on BOA since last year's year in review.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's nothing to complain about. More busy this year, busier next year. I'm rebooting the show too, so that'll come up in the next couple of months.
Nice.
So
nice. Yeah,
adding another actual show to the whole whatever. Even though I've been doing it since 1998. So because I was on a show the other day, I said, "Oh, so how long have you been doing it?" And people are like, "Oh, maybe 8 or 9 years," and I was like, 98 was when I started doing some form of broadcasting on the FM pirate station here in LA.
Yeah. You've been around longer than Binnall of America, which is saying something because we've been around for a long time now. So it's only a few people that are still going after all these years. All right. So we start with the UFOs. And so just to sort of bring people up to speed. So essentially I just went through like the past year and kind of cherry picked what I thought were the bigger stories, and we'll go down the list. So I didn't really pick out any UFO sightings because there was just like countless UFO sightings. So there wasn't anything that really captivated people for more than like a week or two. So if that. There was a couple of big cases, but nothing like no signature case, I guess you could say. So,
not really. I mean, just a flap signature case, I guess. That's about it.
Yeah. But the big thing that stood out to me to start was the Arrow. Yeah, ARO. They released some. I guess they were like required to do a report on government interest in UFOs over the years, like a deep dive into the history of the government's interest in UFOs. And they issued a report that said they found no evidence of aliens or recovered ET craft. It was kind of like it bummed out a lot of UFO or UAP people. So it was kind of, I don't recall the report too well anymore, but it was kind of like, it was just a big, there's no aliens, pretty much.
Well, there has to be another side. So I think that's just the nature of UFO theater. They don't exist. Yeah. They do exist. You're not telling us the truth. We are telling you the truth. It seems like a game. I guess it is a game, and I think some of it's played for on purpose, and maybe a lot of it isn't. It's just the nature of the theater of UFO information in the public space. And I think that can be exploited. And also it's just the nature of it. I mean, I'm not going to ascribe conspiracy to everything. But it's been ongoing. It's just that it's turned a corner in the last 5 years and been a different kind of game.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who thought that they were going to like go, turns out we found something in the archive that like where we found aliens, and they would put it in a report, just kind of, I don't know, like that smacks of naivete. Like if it was that easy for them to find it, we already would know. We would already know. Clearly, if there's anything worth knowing that's being kept secret, it's being so kept secret that it's that hard to find. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I posted a quote from Hynek the other day from 1977. He said, "You can cover up knowledge and you can cover up ignorance." I think there was much more of the latter than of the former. So that's what he was saying about being in Blue Book. And I think a lot of that still holds true. Like, we don't exactly know what it is. We don't, but it's a lot more valuable to not know what it is and ascribe it to things that are convenient, or keep a debate going rather than and muddy the waters too, in case it's just something purely military by using UFO subject. So there's something there, but revealing it probably wouldn't. I haven't changed my opinion in years. Revealing it wouldn't really make any difference. The thing would, in whoever knows about this, whatever their view is, revealing it would actually make less sense, because then that Swiss Army knife of the UFO thing couldn't be used for whatever disinformation or misdirection of attention, or getting people to pay attention to certain things and not others, or whatever. Because if everybody's decided what it is for sure, all the way up and down the line, then there's no question anymore.
Yeah.
And I think there's still a question in a lot of anybody that really does know, possibly in the government, what's going on, that there's a huge question in their minds too, just like there are in ours. And I still think the ETH is not the only explanation. It's just one of many, and it's so weird seeing that was like a not as big a popular of an opinion a while back, and now people that are coming up to speed really quick have started putting. I never thought I'd hear some government person saying, well, there could have been people here for a long time. Have you heard of the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis? I was like, what? That's being talked about officially? Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're going to come up against the same wall that everybody else has been looking into this for years, Will. So it's kind of like it'll follow like the same progression, where it's like maybe they're not from here, maybe they're not from outer space, maybe they're robots, maybe they're living here on the water or whatever. It's like, yeah, all this shit Brad Steiger like put out there like 40 fucking years ago. But it is cool to see, see it come up again and from different sources and shit, from like more academic and government sources and stuff. So Big Lou Elizondo, he wrote a book. The book came out. I forget when, like in September. Actually, I think it came out in October. He did all the media rounds. I did not read the book. I can't speak to what's in the book. I just, as I mentioned to Craig, when I sent him the notes, I just kind of more see the book thing as kind of the end of. Originally, when I thought it was kind of like, all right, this is the end of the UAP fad. But now I'm kind of like, okay, maybe this is just like the end of the beginning of the fad or whatever, like this section, this little era here, kind of. Once people are kind of coming out with the tell-all books and, I don't want to say cashing in as a pejorative, but like cashing in or cashing out on the from their experiences and everything, it kind of it sort of feels like it's sort of entering into an end stage of that part. So who knows what? Because once like the book comes out, you don't really have anything else to say. It's kind of like, all right. So what's the deal here?
Yeah. And I told you beforehand, and I'm sorry to disappoint anybody. I haven't read the book. I probably won't read the book because it won't tell. Most of the people I know, and probably a lot of people listening, will know already what's already in the book. And it's just sort of filling in some details for people. It's weird. I don't think it kicks the ball down the field any kind of real answer. As far as I know, I haven't heard anybody say, "Oh my God, he revealed this in the book, and this changes everything." So whether you believe him or not, or you think he's honest or not, or somewhere in between, I think it, like I said, it's part of the theater of the UFO thing. And it's also, I mean, I say this once in a while, and I can't remember when I first said this myself or if it even came from me, but I say the UFO is a Rorschach blot, so you can use it to support any theory that you might want. You can find anywhere from a little to a whole lot of evidence to support what you want to say, but it's not the answer. It's just, another person holding onto a part of the elephant, I guess. But nobody really knows what the elephant is. We're all kind of blind to what that is. So, Lou's playing his part, and the Congress people that are interviewing them in these hearings are playing their part, and Arrow's playing their part, and Sean Kirkpatrick's playing his part. It's just, that's the way I choose to look at it right now. And it makes more sense to me, because it's like you're sitting and watching a play, and you can get involved with the characters and all that, but you ultimately know that it's a play, and it's pointing at something else. It's pointing at whatever the theme of the play is, or whatever what are the motivations of the characters? What do they want to do? How's this going to end up? How does this drama unfold? And that's kind of how I look at it. Partially because if I get involved in believing any part of it very seriously, or to the exclusion of anything else, I'm going to look stupid very quickly, because there's so many different valid points of view. There's some dumb ones too, but there's some pretty valid ones, and a lot of them are at odds with each other, which is great.
Yeah,
it just allows us to expand our awareness and learning and talk to people, and everybody should do their own research. I think that's the ultimate answer to UFOs: is you do your own research and you make up your own mind. No one person's opinion is 100% valid. I think it's great.
So we've readjusted the show here. We might have had some technical difficulties there in the first 15 minutes. So if things were choppy, I apologize, but I think they're going to be okay now. You were saying about the player. Yeah, I kind of liken it to a reality show, but it's the same kind of conceit. The UFO scene. It's like it's just a show, and the people who are the UAP fans, it's just not like the old days. And I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man, but it's just like you don't really see people are just reacting to whatever the fuck's happening. They're not kind of proactively out there trying to investigate cases and shit like back in the day. But that's just how it is.
Yeah, not as much. Well, because it's easier to get your fix now. You just have to go look. Just turn on your phone or whatever the hell. And it's it's a different world. Whereas I look at it as a show, I also think that there's something definitely behind the show, and something definitely that isn't us. But we've got so many ways to interpret it that it's lost in that noise. I don't know what the source is. Myself, I think I sometimes that question gets asked, what do you think UFOs are? And I said, no, I think what you should ask is, what do you think causes UFO reports? Because that's so many other questions. Where is that stimulus coming from? Where is that person? What kind of person? What culture is it? How do other people that have had this experience interpret it? All these things. And if you can figure that out, and all the noise that goes on between whatever it is and us talking about it, then maybe you're a little bit closer to what it is. But it's kind of an oblique thing where you push one button and this light turns on, and you got to figure out what the system is, and we don't even know if there's a system. The system is probably based in how we perceive things and how we discuss things and how we decide what's real and what's not. So it's a complicated thing. And the great thing about this is the subject is it touches on every science and even beyond science, which is what I'm trying to work with right now, arts and humanities. Nobody talks about that aspect of it. And I think it's important, just like music and poetry and art are important, just as important to most people as science. So, and they're different things. So they're different parts of our brain. So UFO affects all those things. A science experiment can't change somebody's life in 5 minutes. Neither can a piece of art, but UFOs can. So,
yeah, that's for sure. So then there was 2 congressional hearings. I'm eating something, folks. Sorry.
I just have tea. I was going to go get a cookie. I've got all kinds of Christmas cookies sitting in the other room.
Yeah, well, speaking to the reality show aspect or the play aspect or the show aspect of it all, there were 2 congressional hearings back to back, one week then another. Very contrasting hearings. One was from the House of Representatives, and the goal was they wanted to expose the truth about UFOs, and they had actually Lou Elizondo and 3 other people whose names escape me, but they were very pro. 3 of them were like pro. There's alien, there's a non-human intelligence sort of being covered.
Was this the Schellenberger Gallaudet
yes.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I've since talked to Tim Gallaudet, actually.
Yes, Tim. I think he was one of the pro sort of. There's something funny going on here, and there was one guy from NASA who was like, there might be something funny going on, but we should definitely look either way. And the other guy was Lou Elizondo, and Schellenberger was was the reporter who he's been told shit, and
Oh yeah,
but it really
brilliant constellation or whatever the thing is called.
Yeah, Immaculate Constellation. That was probably one of the big news of UFO world this year, and I didn't even mention it here in the notes because it's just another fucking thing. It's like hearsay. It's just more hearsay. It's so to me, it's like we've heard a lot. We've heard say or heard said everything that's under the sun here. So it's like do I have to say it? Show me the fucking aliens. Like there was no, it didn't even happen.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, this seemed like the closest they were. This was kind of like a show me the fucking aliens hearing, and they didn't really bring any aliens. So
no, they can't probably because
right.
the nature of that evidence is so ephemeral. It's not really going to convince anybody unless they bring in dead aliens or something, and they're openly allowed to let anybody or any qualified person outside of the government or the military look at them, and that's not going to happen for a lot of reasons. If the stuff exists, I don't know if it does or not. It's kind of a the only thing I believe about UFOs is something is going on. Past that, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's about as far as you can go. Yeah.
Yeah. But, the whole nature of the subject, there's never been and may never be any concrete evidence of it in the way we think of evidence. It's, can anecdotal evidence be evidence? Well, I think so, but I don't know if it can be scientific evidence. So, it will remain literally unsolved. It's the ultimate Schrodinger's cat, The aliens exist and they don't exist at the same time, depending on your belief or your talk about them, whatever you heard 5 minutes ago or whatever the hell. And that's kind of what makes it fascinating. And so it's funny. I just thought I did a lecture just basically saying get rid of UFO organizations because they're not designed to figure anything out. They're designed to be organizations. And so if you look at UFOs in a systematic way, you're always going to be screwed because UFOs are not systematic. They're the least systematic thing ever, They're completely random who sees them, completely random where they are, completely random who reports them, even within a group of 10 people. I talked to some people recently and they said, I've been seeing these UFOs over my house. I said, oh, yeah? You have pictures? Yeah. And they showed me the pictures and I was like, okay, they're lights far away.
Yeah, yeah.
And my first question was, does this picture depict what you saw? And none of them said yes, like 3 people. They said, yeah, sort of, which proves to me that cameras can't capture actually what's going on or what the experience is or what the memory is. And the second thing I asked was, were there other people with you who saw this? And I think at least one or two of them said yes. And I said, what did they say? And I was actually kind of really happy that they said this. They said, no, not everybody agreed. Some people didn't see anything. And some people saw an airplane, and some people saw, it's like, well, exactly. That's what happens. So that's what makes it, I think, so hard to get a hold of it for an institution or a scientist or whatever, even though a lot are trying, and I think it's great.
Yeah. So that was the first hearing. And then it was contrasted by the second hearing the following week when the new, I don't know his name, the new head of the Pentagon UFO program, head of AARO, he had an update at a Senate hearing. And I was laughing about this with Red Pill Junkie when we talked a couple weeks ago that the first hearing, the House hearing with Lou and the pro-alien kind of contingent was like a packed house. It was like a big affair. Then the one the next week with the head of Arrow was was just like two senators, the head of Arrow, and like a whole bunch of fucking empty chairs. It was crazy how
I didn't watch that one. I did watch the first one.
You did? Yeah, see? Yeah, the first one was like the circus. The second one was just like completely like a wasteland. It was crazy. It was really wild. And he actually, the guy from the Pentagon thing was like, it almost felt like he felt bad or something because he was just like, well, we do have some cases that are kind of interesting. And he like named like 3 really interesting, weird cases. And it was like, all right, but mostly he was like, but like most of the shit's like balloons and stuff. So,
I'm sure he's pretty much right. Hey, Tim, I saw a drone last night.
Are you being sarcastic or?
No, I'm not. I was driving home at 11:30 at night, right in the middle of Burbank, going into Hollywood. And as I go over that Cahuenga Pass area, if people know the LA area, I saw something just floating over the freeway, and it was not a helicopter because I know what helicopter lights look like. And it wasn't an airplane unless it was just an airplane flying way slower than it should be because I was going the opposite direction. So because of parallax or whatever, it might look like it's standing still. No, when I went under it, when I was basically near it, it was still standing still. So it was something that was hovering.
Weird.
But it was way bigger than an actual drone. And it had a red and a green light like you're supposed to have on the sides, and it had 2 blinking white lights. It didn't blink the way a beacon on an airplane or a helicopter blinks.
Yeah.
So it either was somebody's giant drone, it was lower than I thought, or it's a mystery. I don't know. But I actually saw something like this floating over the freeway. Helicopters will hover, but they don't look like this thing looked. And plus it was close enough. The lights, I could see not the structure, but what the structure might be holding it up. And it looked like it might be a plane, but the lights were not arrayed in the way, at least the navigation lights, the right and left, those were fine. But the other 2 blinking white lights, that's not an airplane light. That's something else. Which is funny because people describe them in that way a little bit. I should have stopped the car and got out, but I was an idiot. I was right in the middle of the freeway and there was no exit. So at least right there.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty wild. Interesting. All right. Well, that works.
I didn't think I was going to think I'd see such a thing in California, but my friends just north of me saw tons of them last week. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's it. Well, it's a good segue because the other story was kind of a revelation that had happened like the previous year or something. But there was this whole thing about drone swarms over a military base. I want to say like in the Baltimore area or something.
Happened in Colorado even earlier than that.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. But this was like, this came out this year that there was like drone swarms over the military base, and they were coming every night, and the Pentagon. I mean, the revelation was like that they didn't know what to do about it. And this all came out like in October, so it was like the precursor to what we saw like in December, which is the big drone flap, which has kind of died out in the news since Christmas came along and everything. Whether we'll see it revive or not, I don't know. I didn't really find, I mean, you're a drone guy, so of course I figure you would find it very interesting. I was kind of like, this is like the clown thing. This is like the monolith thing. Like every 4 years, there's some kind of weird flap of weirdness. The people like a hysteria or something that grips people or something, and so I kind of just wrote it off as that. And I assume that it's like our drones, in some instances, that they were doing something. But then the whole thing gets all complicated because then, like, a lot of people have drones. So then they fucking feel compelled to, they're like, well, I'm going to send my drone up to look at what's going on, or I'm going to be a part of this drone thing. It's like, it's almost, again, it's like the people who are like, well, I'm going to make a monolith, or it's like, or I'm going to dress as a clown and fucking freak people out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I have a drone, I'm going to put it up. So it kind of muddied the whole situation. I mean, the theory I heard that was the most interesting was that they were flying, either they were doing a test or they were doing a genuine search, but like they were using, and like maybe you would know this, but like they were using like advanced government drones that like can detect radiation and shit. They were looking for like possible dirty bomb elements, or it was a test of the technology to see if they can find dirty bomb elements. I guess we'll if a dirty bomb goes off, I guess we'll know that it wasn't a fucking test. But that was the theory I heard, and someone like pointed out like this very specific kind of drone they use and shit. So I mean, that if it wasn't that, it was probably something along those lines, like some kind of either a test or an actual exercise that they didn't want to tell people. Like that, they're like, we'd rather you be freaked out over drones than what the fucking drones are looking for. Kind of classic UFO misdirection, where they're like, yeah, we don't know what the drones are. We don't know anything about those drones because they're like, we can't fucking tell them there's a dirty bomb in Hoboken. Yeah, so that's kind of. I mean,
I heard that.
I kind of believe that.
I heard that and other things, and I don't know what to make of it. I think I talked about this the other day with some people and on another show, and it's almost like the UFO thing. If you've got a theory about it, it's just as valid as anybody else's. It just seems like I think seems likely to me it's some kind of test or exercise or something like that with some kind of drone technology. Also, people are saying, well, they don't make any noise. There are propeller designs that reduce prop noise quite a bit. In fact, my drone has them. It's just, you can still hear it. But it's like those little winglets on the end of airplanes. They just turn the end up so that the prop going through the air, it doesn't has what the prop is doing is actually breaking the speed of sound, and it's what you're hearing. It's just basically the air getting out of the way, especially when you hear a helicopter like wop, 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 wop. That's not the engine. That's the air. You can have no engine, like a silent electric engine, like a drone, but the props you're always going to hear. But there may be a way just to reduce that prop noise to almost nothing. I think it's well within capabilities, and it would explain why people say that they're hovering silently, whatever. The other weird thing about this, and I have to acknowledge it, is people are seeing weird things along with the drones that are not drones, unless they're mistaken or it's total hysteria or whatever. I don't like when people put hysteria in there. It's like, oh, that's just hysteria. It's like, well, it could be, but if you label something like that, it just goes away for you, and you don't have to think about what might actually be going on. And while there are certainly elements to a hysteria around it, I think a lot of things people are seeing are legitimate and real and solid. But the nature of those things, I have no idea. I did notice something, and I haven't talked about this until now. I have an app for my when I go flying, which I haven't done in a while. Yeah. But when I do, I've got an app that pilots use. In fact, I was sitting in an airport, and like this pilot was getting ready to get on the plane. I was like, "Hey, you use that too?" And he goes, "Yeah, we all use it." Okay. But what I did was I looked at, and it shows you all the flight restrictions and all the, when the president comes, there's a big area around wherever you are. In fact, I know the president's coming before anybody else does, because I look at the flight restrictions. It's like, this flight restriction will be in, like, what's it for? President of the United States. Oh, the president's coming in like 4 days. Yeah. Or 2 days or whatever. But I looked at New Jersey. It looks like 50, 60, 80 teeny tiny little flight restriction areas, like all pockmarked around the state. I was wondering what it was, and I zoomed in on them, and practically all of them are 400 feet above ground level, and they're all around power stations, cell towers, just any kind of infrastructure. So, yeah, and drones are only supposed to go up to 400 feet above ground level unless you have special permission, or 400 feet from any vertical thing, no matter what it is. Like a building, you can't come closer than 400. If the building is 1,000 feet tall, you can go all the way to the top of that building, but you can't go anywhere. Actually, no, you can't. You can't go above 400 feet, but you can't come anywhere within 400 feet of that building. So these restrictions were all 400 feet around infrastructure things.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned the hobbyists, like getting into the act. I think that's why it is. It's like, okay, just stop it with this. Also, it was designated national defense airspace around power stations and stuff. So I think it's like, I don't think it's what the drones are, but I think it's a reaction to all the craziness going on around there. It's like, don't fly your drones around these things. It's, we don't want you flying your drones at night. In fact, it's illegal unless you have a permit. But we don't want you flying your drones around any of these important infrastructure places. And like I said, I don't think it has anything to do with anything but what's going on over there. And I looked around the country, and that's the only place where that's going on right now, as far as I can tell.
Interesting.
So that's weird. And it's national defense airspace, not anything. And it's in effect from middle of December, which is past, to the middle of January. So I wonder if all the drone stuff will stop sometime in the middle of January. We'll see.
I think so, yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. It definitely seems like it's kind of phased out of the consciousness a little bit with, like I said, with the holidays.
It is. News cycles, people get tired of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of it for the big UFO stories of the year. I do want to ask you, like, how, when someone has a drone up there, like, oftentimes they say that that people get in trouble for flying a drone. How the fuck can they even track that back to the person on the ground? Is it like, are these registered or something? Everybody's registered, but nobody is required to have a transponder or anything that communicates. Just there'd be so many of them. I think they just don't want to worry about it. But no, unless you actually catch the person in the act, at this point, there's no way of telling who it belongs to. Okay, yeah.
It's just up there. Things are changing, and they're trying to. I heard this at drone conventions like 10 years ago. What they want to do is put a transponder-like device in every drone, so that one, people can track it with equipment, or two, and probably more importantly, it keeps it from running into planes, helicopters, and other drones. Yeah. Automated system that basically, because I have a geofencing on mine. If I get near an airport, and I tried this once because I was doing some work, I kept trying to do a survey of this building, and the drone would go up, fly for like a minute, and then come screaming back, and then actually no, it would just suddenly stop in midair and go to land by itself, and I couldn't do anything except steer it left and right. I couldn't control it coming down. It was coming down no matter what. Huh. So it basically, there's a system in place where if you go anywhere near restricted airspace, like a regular airport, you're not supposed to fly your drone around airports. I think within 5 miles. All the drones are equipped with some GPS to know where it is, and if you're flying there without permission, your drone will just land. And after a while, it's gotten to the point now where if I'm in a restricted space, it'll tell me you're not allowed to take off or fly here, and it won't even let the drone launch.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's called geofencing. It designates certain areas where you're not supposed to fly, and the drone through the GPS is programmed not to fly in those areas. My drone had started coming down. And it's like, I had to point the camera down so I could see where it was going, so I could find clear space for it to land. So I was just shifting it left and right and up and back and forth until I landed in a yard with a bunch of crates, and I landed between a bunch of crates. Like I threaded the needle. I had to climb over these crates, drop down, get my drone, climb back out of there, climb over the crates, and go and leave.
Holy shit! Damn.
So yeah, it's a pretty sophisticated system. So anybody doing something they shouldn't be, like if flying over New Jersey, that there's certain parts of restricted airspace, but there's lots that aren't.
Yeah,
especially close to the ground. Up to 400 feet. No, usually down to the ground is just around airports or this temporary flight restriction around these infrastructure pieces, cell towers and power stations and stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Yeah, that kind of answers some of my own questions about this drone thing. Yeah. All right. So that was sort of the big UFO events of the year. And then there was some losses and some new things that happened. So one of the new things that came about is, and you can speak to this, the UFO Historical Records Archive has opened in New Mexico. I think it's Marlar is the guy who's
David Marlar and the Rio Rancho.
You visited it, or at least you've seen it or talked to him or something like that, right?
Yeah, I visited him in, I think, March, April, May or June. I was in New Mexico, and I stopped by Marlar's, and it was right before he was just about to move everything in the next month. Oh no, it must have been like August or September when I was there, because he was about to do this in October or November, which he eventually did. But David Marlar has been collecting UFO records, ephemera, and the most important, and he's been doing this for years. I visited him 10 years ago, and it was all in filing cabinets in his garage.
Yeah.
And then the next time I visited him, he had moved to another house, and he built an entire wing on his house just to contain all the stuff that he was getting.
Jesus.
And now he ran out of room doing that. So the Rio Rancho School District, which is a suburb of, I think it's its own city, officially, governmentally, but it's basically a suburb of Albuquerque. It's west of Albuquerque. The school district there, for whatever reason, decided to sponsor, I think it's a school district, donated a building, or at least space in this building, temperature controlled, whatever, building, to house all these records.
Yeah.
And when I visited him in August, he was just about to move. And he was actually pulling all kinds of stuff out. He showed me a bunch of records about the Benowitz thing, which were kind of amazing, that I'd never seen. I think the main reason he had to move and wanted to move and was actively looking for a place to move was that he had just obtained all the APRO files, Aerial Phenomena Research Organization files, that had been locked away in a storage facility in Phoenix for like 20-something years.
Yeah.
And speaking of people that left, Chris O'Brien was trying to locate them and get a hold of them like 10 years ago. And he told me this couple that had befriended Coral and Jim Lorenzen, who had founded APRO in the last years of their life, they had somehow gotten a hold of all their files and just put them in a storage space. And then there they sat for years until Marlar came along, and I guess just they didn't want to pay the storage space, or he made an offer they couldn't refuse or something. But he got all those files, and he showed me the filing cabinets. There were like 20 of them, like regular, those office size that are like 5.5 feet or whatever they are.
Yeah,
tall. They were all full of records from the APRO files. Sightings, firsthand accounts. He showed me, and I took a picture of it, a piece of, remember the Stephen Michalak case from Canada? I think the hunter saw this thing hovering or landed next to a lake, and then he went up to try and touch it, and this hot blast of air like burnt his chest, and and he had gloves or welder's gloves, and he touched the thing with it. He had a piece of Stephen Michalak's shirt and one of his gloves that had touched the.
Oh wow!
So it was like going to UFO church and seeing this holy relic. But that's just one of the things he has. I mean, he had all kinds of artifacts and pieces of evidence and pieces that had dropped out of UFOs, like maybe the Ubatuba case from Brazil in the 60s or 50s. It's a treasure trove. I think it's the largest private collection of UFO related material, certainly in this country. I don't know about the world. Archives for the Unexplained in Sweden probably has more. But it was kind of a coup for Marler to get these APRO files. And they just had to come from Phoenix to Albuquerque, which wasn't that much of a distance. But yeah, he needed space for it. As long as you are doing some kind of legitimate research or are recognized as somebody that's an expert on some aspect of the phenomenon or a case, he's totally fine just to, he'll say, okay, come on in. He actually will pull files for you and put them out so you can examine them. So he provides an amazing service. And he's a really cool guy, too. He's like the nicest, most mellow person.
Yeah.
I've known him for years, and he's always been really helpful with stuff when he can be. He's answered a lot of questions for me. It's like, well, who was doing this at this time? He was like, give me a couple days. He'd go and look and find the file. This guy got there at this time. He saw this, and he'll read me off the thing or send me a file or an image of the really cool, helpful guy. And I'm glad he got that space. I mean, and that it's up and running now.
Yeah. They cut the ribbon. I think he said they cut the ribbon in October, but he said they weren't really going to be open for the public till November or so. So now it's definitely, I would assume, open. And
I'm pretty sure it's open.
Huge resource for people, and it's good that shit's being saved. And we used to talk about the APRO files on Binnall of America back in the day. Like they were like the lost
Grail.
Yeah. They were like the lost holy grail of UFO old shit. So it's like, wow. The whole thing was like they were being held hostage by someone who wouldn't let them go. So
there's stuff in there that will, probably settle a lot of arguments and create a lot more mysteries. Who knows? He gave me a little lapel pin that has the logo on it. I have it up on my bulletin board.
That's nice.
Great place. Anybody that, in fact, I think anybody says, I'd like an answer on so-and-so. If you make an appointment with them, you most likely can go out there and take a look at it.
Yeah, I think he's pretty open, pretty cool about it. So yeah. So then on the opposite end of the spectrum, I never got a chance to see this, but it was the UFO Welcome Center in South Carolina. It was this
burned down,
wacky roadside attraction that this guy built along the side of his property, and it finally burned down. It had been around. Let me see.
Well, just a few years, 3 or 4 years or something.
Oh no, it had been around for a long time. This thing's pulling up the article now. Let me see when it was. Come on, baby. It had been around for at least 15 or 20 years, I won't say.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was built at what did the article say? It was built at 30 tons of plywood. No wonder it burned so quickly.
Yeah, it was built in 1994 in the town of Bowman, and it was this saucer-shaped UFO landing site, 16 feet tall, 40 feet wide. It was sort of a local attraction. I don't think there was a gift shop or anything like that, but it was certainly well known. So yeah, what was that? 1994, so 30 years. So a good run for it, and. But it was it was pretty chintzy, kind of this just cobbled together UFO that this guy built.
We've been to a few of things like that.
Yes, we have, because the next story is the California Bigfoot Museum, which we visited in September, and we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to see it because the guy was like, I don't know, man, this thing's kind of coming to an end. And but luckily, we lucked out because it was open that day in September when we went to see it. That's the Bigfoot Discovery
Museum, yeah.
Community of Felton, and the guy who ran it, Michael Rugg. As we observed when we went, he was having a lot of health issues just when we were there.
Yeah.
And then it came out in late October that he was the property was for sale and he was going to shut down the museum. So I don't know if it's happened yet, but it's certainly in the cards and it's going to happen. And I think he said Cliff Barackman, who has a Bigfoot museum somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, was going to come down and take all the stuff. So that's kind of another bummer of a thing that had been around for 20 years. Ironically enough, that was 2004. So the UFO Welcome Center was 30 years old to the day or whatever, 30 years. That went kaput, and then the Bigfoot Museum shut down here 20 years after they opened. So a couple of unfortunate losses in a way. And for people who like the weed, what's that?
I visited him probably 10 or 12 years ago, something like that. The only other time I've been to that Bigfoot Museum, I went out to Robert Anton Wilson's memorial funeral service. And about 3/4 of the way through, my friends and I said, let's go to the Bigfoot Museum. We drove up there and actually saw him when he was younger and more spry and really into it. And, I asked him why he started the museum, and he said he had his own Bigfoot sighting, and he told me about it. And it was around Santa Cruz, which is why he wanted to build, and he was from there, I guess, so that's why he wanted to build the museum there. Just kind of, that's how he dealt with his one encounter with the Bigfoot, was this building this entire museum. He became obsessed.
Yeah, and it was a cool place. I mean, it was you could tell it was a labor of love. I'll say that.
Yeah, it was homespun for sure.
Yeah, it was threadbare in a way. It was kind of like, it was very small, very intimate, but very, just like I said, labor of love. You could tell this guy really put a lot into it, and it was cool. I mean, I'm glad I got the chance to see it before it closed down.
Did he still have the diorama out like in that barn area of the Bigfoot, like standing in the forest, or Bigfoot family? I can't remember what it was, but it was right outside the museum. There was just like this barn-looking thing with plexiglass over one side, and there was like this Bigfoot life-size Bigfoot diorama inside. Was that still there, or was it kind of?
I think I remember looking in a window and seeing some kind of Bigfoot stuff like that was just like that had been kind of like fallen into
neglected.
Disrepair. Yeah. But
I think he started. It looked like he started using it as a storage place or something.
Yeah. Like I remember like looking in. I think I saw like boxes and looked like looking into someone's garage. But then there was like a Bigfoot here or there. And
yeah, that used to be just this like beautiful diorama. When you pulled up and parked, it was like right in front of you. It was beautiful. Sorry to see.
Yeah. It was definitely a place that you kind of like got the impression like it was on its way out. It was like definitely on its way out. It had seen better days. And it's a bummer, but kudos to that guy for doing that. For even creating this thing in the first place. So it's pretty cool. Now a place I've become more enamored with in recent years, Kentucky. Down in Kentucky, they put out a local museum. They opened up the Bath County History Museum. I'm not sure where exactly that is. In Olympia Springs, I believe. Where essentially, I'm kind of butchering this. The famous or infamous or legendary Kentucky meat shower that happened in 1876 when the meat fell from the sky no one knows why. They opened a new exhibit at the Bath County History Museum celebrating the Kentucky meat shower with an actual piece of the meat that had been saved.
It just sounds like a euphemism. I mean, go ahead.
No,
what happened? It was a total Kentucky meat shower, man. You should have been there.
So that was it. That was So losses and new things. So if you're down in Kentucky, you can go see a piece of the fucking meat that fell 150 years ago, which is pretty cool, I guess.
Yeah, there's so many of those places that places that could have a museum. There was a place in where was it? I think in the mountains here in California with there's been a few of them where rocks just fell out of nowhere for a period of time, and it all seemed to happen in the 19th and early 20th century. I mean, I think it still happens, but just these mysteries of apported objects just landing in somebody's property or on their roofs or something like that. And that's been around for a while. And of course, there's frog falls and fish falls and that. I think during the meat shower, people actually collected it and cooked it up and ate it.
I think some people did. Yeah,
it was fresh. Hey, it's free meat.
Yeah,
it was from heaven. Did. So, yeah, God's not a vegetarian apparently, at least in Kentucky.
So, yeah. So if we ever get around to a Paramania, Kentucky, like we talked about before, I'd have to put that on the agenda.
Yeah, meat shower museum. Yep.
See the meat.
Show me the meat.
And then there's also, I don't have it in front of me. I wrote about it like last week, but they opened there's also now a UFO exhibit at a museum in Florida. So like a full-on, really pretty well-produced UFO exhibit down in Florida at here it is at it's called UFO Denial, Disclosure, and Discernment, and it's at the Elliott Museum in the city of Stuart, Florida. So kind of, more proof of the UFO and the zeitgeist kind of thing, that this is a pretty fairly normal museum that does normal museum stuff like local history and culture and shit. And they put in this UFO exhibit. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's a marketing decision, I'm sure. I wonder if it's near Gulf Breeze or any place where there is a famous UFO. I don't know where Stuart, Florida is. Do you see it on a map there?
No. And I have no idea. There was no mention of Gulf Breeze in the whole thing. So it was just
okay.
Just kind of like the guy who runs the museum is a big UFO fan. Actually, weirdly enough, not to poke fun at the guy, but I kind of have to. But it's like a big part of the thing is like crop circles. I think he's like really into crop circles because like there's a whole section on crop circles, and it's like, oh, weird. Why there's such a peripheral, sort of very specific, odd like aspect to also be celebrating with the UFO. So it's like clearly I think like was quoted in the local news, like these things are amazing and they're really still quite a mystery and everything. And it was like, oh, so you're really into crop circles. So yeah, I thought that was
okay. You know what it's near? I'm looking at a map. It's about 10 miles from Port St. Lucie, maybe 20. Port St. Lucie is where Arcturus Books was located. Remember that guy?
Vaguely.
Arcturus Books was a UFO and paranormal book dealer like for 20 or 30 years. And he used to put out a catalog, and the catalog was the most enjoyable thing about the book,
Okay, yeah, I remember I think I remember.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. Bob something. I can't remember now. But anyway, he put Bob Gerard. He put out Arcturus Books catalog, and he would review as many books as he possibly could. And if he didn't like a book, he would give it a scathing review. But it was a book he was trying to sell. So it was great. He wrote a review of Cito's New Friends. Remember that children's book?
Oh, yeah. Julius loves that book. Yeah.
Yeah. I treasure my copy. He reviewed that book and said it was the most dangerous book ever, and you shouldn't be exposing kids to this kind of stuff. And the last line in the review was, make sure you lock this in the gun cabinet so the kiddies don't blow their heads off.
Jesus Christ. Wow. Holy shit.
And I wrote Bob Gerard. I said, could I republish that review? I'll pay you for it. I'll give you like $20 if I can republish the review. And he said, no, I've already retracted the review. I'm not so harsh about it now, and I'd rather you didn't publish that nasty review. And I was like, okay, but it was a classic. Oh, wow. It was such a great review.
That's amazing.
Like, make sure you lock this in the gun cabinet so the kiddies don't blow their heads off. $12.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's wild. Cito's New Friends. Wow.
Yeah. But that's the only connection I can think of with Stuart, Florida. It's near where our tourist books used to be located.
So the next thing, so that's kind of it for, we covered UFOs and covered the comings and goings of these things. Although I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to jump a bit here because I'll make a chilling prediction. So at the very end of my notes, sort of extemporaneous ones, I have environmental activists spray Stonehenge with orange powder. That happened in June. They stormed Stonehenge. It's all in the title. You can figure it out, folks. Yeah. Sprayed it with orange powder paint. So I include this in. I jumped to include this in this sort of comings and goings part because it's like there's a part of me. We saw what happened with America with Georgia Guidestones. America's Stonehenge is just kind of in New Hampshire is kind of already a pile of rocks. You can't do too much to damage that. But with the Georgia Guidestones and some asshole cut down like an iconic fucking tree last year in England that was like centuries old. As a part of me, I just worry the environmental activists getting that close and being able to spray Stonehenge with orange powder makes me think like. I hope it never happens. I don't want to live to see the day that some asshole like really fucks up Stonehenge, but I just have a feeling that it's like inevitable. It's just kind of just the nature of life in a way.
Yeah. What happened to Atlantis? Activists destroyed it.
Exactly. Yeah. No shit. Right. Yeah, so that happened this year, and the people they've all been charged with desecrating a fucking monument and shit, and serious kind of crimes. Even though they really didn't damage it too badly, I guess they.
No, it was just powder, and they washed it off.
Yeah, I mean they're environmental activists, so they weren't that would kind of be antithetical to their whole thing. But it's like. But some asshole who doesn't have an agenda other than to be an asshole could, I'm imagining someone like fucking driving a truck up there and like just driving it through cutting a fucking swath through Stonehenge or some shit. So,
who knows? It'd probably destroy the truck depending on what it was.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
My favorite activism that I like is, remember a long time ago that the Greenpeace climbed up on the Golden Gate Bridge and dropped a banner off the Golden Gate Bridge. And the only people they were endangering were themselves. Yeah. And what would have happened if something went wrong? They'd have fallen in the water and died, and well, too bad. But it certainly got everybody's attention. It destroyed nothing. So that's the kind of activism I like. Get a lot of attention, endanger only yourself. And then I guess people that were out there trying to quote unquote rescue them, it probably endangered them too, which is part of the equation.
Yeah.
But they didn't desecrate anything. It was just a sign.
So on the Bigfoot front, not much happening with Bigfoot this year. Sadly, the best video was a hoax that came out of Oklahoma. It was like a super good video, which is like generally a sign that it's probably not legit.
If it's too good to be true, then it's not true.
Yeah. So, but that got like super, super viral. That burst out of the paranormal and into the mainstream. There were a few.
Was it for a weed shop or something?
A smoke shop. Yeah. I don't know if they have weed I don't know if they have legal weed in Oklahoma, but definitely a smoke shop.
Maybe not. So. Yeah, my dad's from there. I'm pretty sure they probably don't at this point yet.
Yeah, some states. Surprising which ones haven't got on board yet, but yeah. So that was it for Bigfoot. I can't think of too many. Greg and I, we're not. I'm going to have Lauren on in later in the year, or to start of the year. So I'll ask him for any.
Oh, he's got the inside Bigfoot stuff every year, definitely.
Yeah, any major breakthroughs, but not that I can recall. The other thing was the guy. I don't know if we talked about this a few years ago, but the guy who murdered his friend because he thought he was summoning Sasquatch to come and kill him. He went on trial in April, and he was found guilty, and it was a crazy fucking trial. And originally they said he was going to plead insanity, but then when they got to the trial, he did a switcheroo and pleaded self-defense, and then he took the stand in his own defense and he fucking stuck to the Sasquatch story and was like, I saw a Sasquatch and he was coming at me, and my friend, I had to kill my friend because he had summoned the Sasquatch. It was like, holy shit, this guy's he's really going with that story. So he was found guilty and then sentenced, and I guess he was like a real he was talking shit to the judge during sentencing, and that to the point that they actually had to remove him from the fucking court because he was like, this is nonsense, this is bullshit, and so he got life, I think, without parole for murdering his friend in the Sasquatch summoning trial. So
where was that?
That was in Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma.
Also, I didn't even make that connection until you said that, but yeah.
I read the article about it, and it just I could not make head or tail. If the guy really wanted to stick with the story, I don't know what his thought process was. Either he totally believes it and that actually happened in some form, or he just wanted to appear completely nuts. Without pleading insanity. It's like, oh my God, you're nuts. But if he's with it enough to argue with the judge, stick with the story, and be supposedly logical about it, then who knows? All bets are off. The guy was he probably had a crazy idea of how to get out of it, and just underestimated because it wasn't a jury trial. The guy chose whatever it is, a judge hearing evidence.
Yeah.
If he was in a jury trial, he might have had a slightly better chance. I don't know.
Yeah.
They would have had to ask people if they were interested in Bigfoot in the juror pool during the voir dire. Do you know do you know about Bigfoot? Are you interested in Bigfoot?
That's what I wish. I don't think they because I followed it pretty close. I don't think they televised it. I wish that was something I would have watched on TV, the Bigfoot Sasquatch summoning trial. And I didn't put this in the notes, but a couple of just Bigfoot being Bigfoot and super popular still. And it's like I follow this pretty close because I kind of like the cultural aspect of it. Two different schools, two different new public schools, one in Florida, one in Virginia. They adopted Bigfoot as their mascot. There's a whole bunch of other schools that already have Bigfoot. There's a new NHL team in Utah that they're having a fan vote, and it seems like they're pretty much going to be called the Utah Yeti, but they haven't announced it yet. Yeah, and that's the NHL. So Bigfoot.
That's great.
Bigfoot's really. And then there's also a minor league soccer team down in Texas that's going to be called the Chupacabras. So this is a big year for.
I think there's been a couple of Chupacabras teams, and it might be some in Mexico. I was so happy when we went to Virginia to find out West Virginia. When we went to the baseball game, I went in the gift store and I found there was a local team like in that region called the Mothmen.
Yeah,
I still have the T-shirt. The Area 50. The Vegas baseball minor league team used to be called the 51s.
Yeah.
And all their merchandising was alien heads.
Yeah.
They changed it to the pilots. Like, what?
So stupid. Yeah, I don't get that at all. Like, the Area 51s were like, that was super popular. I have the hat from them, too.
I went to their games. I've spent hundreds of dollars on their merchandise, when they were.
It's crazy.
When they were in existence. So that's great that there's cryptids are being used as mascots. As they should be.
Yeah. Well, it's just further proof that Bigfoot's like this folk hero now, more so than even like a creature that people necessarily are going believe is out there. It's like it's maybe get a transition to like folk figure or some shit.
There should be an upstate New York baseball team called the Champs after Champ, the lake monster.
There is.
Oh, there is?
Yeah. There's
a team called the Champs.
No, the Lake Monsters. Or the Monsters, something like Lake Monsters.
Oh, okay. They should be called the Champs because then they would already be pre-branded as a winning team.
I was going to say that's probably why they don't. That's probably why they don't, because it would be too confusing to people. You play for the Champs? It's like, no, you're not the Champs. Yeah, so it'd be too confusing. But then I thought this was kind of funny. There's a Japanese over in Japan. These are two different villages. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so this thing's having a moment. This creature called where is it? Chinoko.
It's spelt very strangely. I've never seen a Japanese word translated in that way. I would pronounce it. Wait, let me find out where it is here.
It's TSUCHINOKO. So Tsuchinoko.
There it is.
I always have trouble with the TS. Yeah.
Yeah. Tsuchinoko. In the village of Shimotikayama.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's one. So that village. The story is that in January it came to light that this village, there was a craze over the Chugunoko or whatever that happened like in the 80s, and so everybody, there was just Tsuchinoko fever essentially, and these little villages would become inundated because there were these reports of a snake that had like a beer bottle sized bulge at the center of its body, and of course it became like magical because then the claims were that it could talk, but it lied to you, and it could jump 6 feet in the air. It became this apocryphal
that sounds wonderful
creature. And
the illustration you sent me is great. The little like anime looking snake with a bulge in the middle with like teeth in the front. Beware of Tsuchinoko on the in English and Japanese on the sticker. Go ahead.
Yes, because it had venomous fangs too. So it was a big thing in the 80s. And there's these two villages. One village is sort of adopted it as their mascot, so that connects to the earlier point. And then another one has they launched, or I think they actually already were leaning on the snake creature, because they have an annual gathering where people hunt for the snake, and like hundreds of people went to the event this year. So it's, I don't know, just kind of interesting. I thought that was kind of neat that it's not just America, it's these other places that are like, oh, we have a crazy creature too, so you should come check out our town or our little village or whatever.
Yeah, a little cryptid grift never really hurt anyone. Exactly.
So then we move into some of the other happenings from the year. There was an exhaustive expedition. This would have been like the best story of the year. I would have moved this like way to be, this would have been like, this is the first thing we have to talk about, but then it fell apart. So in January.
Yeah, inconclusive.
Well, no, it is conclusive. Well, it is conclusively.
Okay, I'm guessing at what you're going to talk about. Please go ahead. Sorry.
The Amelia Earhart. There were sonar images of what they thought could be Amelia Earhart's plane. This guy is like obsessed. He's put like millions of dollars into this search for Amelia Earhart. Where they go.
The former OSI guy, the Air Force intelligence.
Yeah, he was
I don't know where he got
intelligence guy.
$11 million, unless he's really good at raising money.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know the source of his funding, but he definitely had a shitload of money, and he dropped a ton of it to go look for Amelia Earhart. And I had not even heard he was doing this, so he might have kept it pretty quiet, like as it was going on. But they like go through the area where they think that she crashed with like a remote controlled sub to scan the ocean floor, and they came upon this thing that looked like a plane. It looked a lot like a plane. And it was like, well, this could be a plane in the spot where we think she might have crashed. So it was like the most promising Amelia Earhart story I'd seen in a long time. And even Amelia Earhart's like ancestors who are still around today were compelled to like comment when they were like, all right, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. And it was like, oh wow, you never hear from the Earharts. So this is like, wow. But then this kind of amused me because on November 5th, while everybody was all worked up about the election, it came out that the sonar photo was just rocks. They had, because the whole thing was like in January, they're like, we got to go back. We're going to go back. Then it was like kind of just waiting all year. Like, well, when are they going to go back? And then ironically, it came out on election day. So it got completely underreported until like 2 weeks later, people were talking about it. It's like, what the fuck? That happened at the beginning of the month. It was revealed. They went back. They sent the thing down. They looked at the thing, and it was just rocks. So it was just rocks that looked like a plane, which is kind of a bummer. It is a bummer.
Yeah. I don't know if I read that far. I just thought they said they were going to go back and take a look at. Was this like confirmed by somebody else, or they went back and looked and they said, "Oh no, it's rocks."
They confirmed that it's rocks.
So okay, well that's honest.
Yeah. So they were like, well, I mean, they were kind of on the hook. I mean, they kind of had to fucking like tell the truth. They couldn't
go out and prove it.
Yeah, it's like, so they said they're going to keep looking, but we'll see. I mean, it's interesting. I didn't like I said, I didn't realize there was somebody doing this. So, it's pretty cool that they did. And but it's a bummer. I was on Matt Hopewell, AP Strange's show. We taped it like last week. I think it's coming out sometime around now. But yeah, it's ironic with these year in review things. We always there are these every year. It's like Amelia Earhart, D.B. Cooper, Voynich manuscript. What is Jack the Ripper, Shroud of Turin? There's like always sort of old reliables that there's, not all of them every year, but certainly some.
Yeah, they keep coming back.
Yeah. And there's like some breakthrough in the thing. And that there was another one like that with D.B. Cooper back in November. We covered this kind of exhaustively on VOA, but some guy, a Cooper researcher, came out and said he found a parachute that he asserted was D.B. Cooper's because it was on the property of a guy who was a suspect. But although Cooper heads like lost their minds, and we had one of the guys on Drew Hurst Beeson, because they're so fastidious in their Cooper research that as soon as they saw the parachute, they were like, no, this, that, this, and this all fucking can't make it, so it can't be D.B. Cooper's parachute. So it was like, but it was one of those stories where the media was like, oh man, they really they ran with it. They're like, it was those headlines like D.B. Cooper solved, parachute, and like no one really kind of came up. No, not a lot of places. I did the follow-up at Coast to Coast. Not a lot of people did follow-up where it's like, no. The Cooper heads have spoken, and this is definitely not D.B. Cooper's parachute.
Yeah, I think you and I discussed this, or you said this is an old like news thing. If there's a question mark at the end of the headline, the answer is no.
Yeah. Yep, that's how you can tell. Now, I was thinking about this as I was
usually
putting the notes together. I'm surprised, being that you're an aviation guy, I'm surprised you don't have more of an interest in the D.B. Cooper story. Because when I talked to some of the Cooper folks, one of the things is like the community is like kind of a combination of like true crime and aviation dudes and guys and gals. So it's like two worlds actually come together, sort of, and a little conspiracy, but it's like true crime, unsolved mystery people who are into it, and also aviation people who are really into studying sort of like how it all went down and everything. So I don't know. You never really had an interest in D.B. Cooper?
No, not a huge one. I mean, I know the basic story. I know that, it was a time when nobody went through any security, so he's able to get through with the suitcase where he said he had a bomb. Also that he was given 2 parachutes, and I think one of them actually either didn't have a parachute or the reserve was not in there or not packed.
Something like that. Yeah.
And also after the hijacking, they actually put a lock on the rear stairs of that airplane that would not allow it to be open during flight ever.
Oh wow!
And it was afterwards it was actually called the I think it was called like the Cooper bolt or the Cooper lever or the Cooper mechanism or something, named after Cooper. So nobody could ever, even if they wanted to open the doors in flight, they couldn't. It was impossible. It was all because of the Cooper thing. I also know some kid found a bunch of the money, I guess about 20 or 30 years later, in a sandbar, and it was actually part of the money.
Yeah, you
got
a lot right there. That's pretty much.
So
those are some of the Cooper highlights. Yeah,
but there's I know the basic outline of it, but I guess I'm more interested, I guess, in the UFO mystery than aviation mysteries. Although a while back I was trying to find out these two contactee people rented a plane and then just were never seen again. And I was trying to find out from aviation historians if they'd ever found the wreckage, because the story is like they took the plane and then they disappeared because they were taken up by the aliens in a UFO. It's like, I bet the wreckage was somewhere and somebody might have solved it, but nobody ever went through and tried to find out. So I was writing to aviation, what do you call them? Like forensic aviation organizations and people. It's like, is there a record of a plane being rented from this airport on this date by two people with these names? And like, no, I know, I got a total dead end for me.
Weird. Sticking, I guess, with the aviation theme, ironically enough, so we got like 3 aviation mysteries. This wasn't intentional. It's just how it unfolded, folks. Malaysia announced like last week or something that they're going to resume the search for MH370. So that mystery is very similar to the Earhart expedition, in that it's a private company that I don't think it's the same company. It's a private company that's going to search. That they're going to put a whole shitload of, I want to say 11 million also, which is kind of weird. So maybe it is the same company. I don't know, but it's like they're going to scour the floor of the area where they think it might be and look for it essentially. And if they find it, then they'll get paid. If they're not, they don't get paid. So it's kind of we'll see. I mean, that's a modern mystery that probably will be solved. Probably only because it's so recent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
that's another chance to deteriorate to the point where it's undetectable. Plus, sonar is a lot more sophisticated and accurate, and the resolution's real good. When you were talking about Earhart, I didn't read how they did it, but when Avi Loeb went to, where was it, New Zealand or whatever it is, to look for pieces of something that fell out of the sky. What they did was they just used a boat or a couple of ships with they would drag the sonar thing behind them over like underwater, and it would just map in a grid pattern. And if they see anything that looks unusual, then they can zero in on that and send something down with an actual camera to check out the thing that looks at. It's probably what happened with Earhart. It's probably what they're doing in this case too. They'll probably just do a grid search and then send a submersible down, either remotely operated. Usually they're tethered. They just have a big long cable on them that's like miles long, so they can go down and check for things like this. I don't think they make them long enough to get down to the Titanic. Those actually have to be submersibles with people in them, because that's so far down.
Well, no, isn't that how they found the fucking the wreckage of the thing, of the fucking that dopey ass guy's thing?
Which?
The one that blew up last year. Now 2 years ago. The submersible. You remember the Ocean Gate?
Oh yeah.
It blew up, and they had to send some things down to they actually got the wreckage out, so they had to send some shit down to get it, and they definitely didn't send any people.
Oh, true.
Down.
Yeah.
So,
well, maybe they're radio operated or something. I don't know, but I think it was originally discovered. It wasn't James Cameron that discovered it, I don't think, but he was one of the first people to dive to it.
What?
To the Titanic wreck.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe it is. The cables are like miles long. I can't remember how far down the Titanic is, like 10,000 feet or something. That's just under 5 miles.
These were like state of the art shit. They were, that mystery captivated the world. So they kind of had to, I think they really wanted to know what the fuck happened to these fucking people.
Yeah.
Who I shouldn't laugh, but it was such a weird story. So the next thing, I shifted it up in the notes here, but the Conjuring House in Rhode Island had quite the year. Now again, this is kind of like the thing with Lauren in a way, where it's like I'm only tangentially on the edge of the ghost community, so I don't know the real skinny on a lot of this, but there was a lot of drama surrounding the Conjuring house, and the lady who owns the Conjuring house, she had recently purchased it a few years ago, got into a dispute with someone who worked there, and she fired him and claimed that the ghost at the site had told her that the guy was stealing money. And this was like so weird that it made like the local news, and it was like the talk. Apparently, again, like I said, I don't, as the kids say, I don't have all the tea on this story, but there was a lot of gossip and shit and just drama. And apparently she was like on social media and making a big to-do about it. And, it was a lot of drama. And then toward the end of the year, I don't know if it was a result of this drama. I mean, I kind of would imagine it would be, but she lost the license to operate a business because they had been doing camping and shit at the Conjuring house. You could camp like in the yard and do ghost hunts and shit. And apparently she lost her business license and she said she was still honoring people who had signed up. And the town was like, I don't know about that lady. And I don't know where that all went, but it sounds like the Conjuring house is just kind of, It had a year. It had a year of drama surrounding it. So for that might be the big story of the ghost world.
Yeah, if I was in the ghost world, I might know a bigger one, but I'm not really. I'm just sort of tangentially connected to it by people that are interested in both things. And of course, I'm interested in it because you and I and most people we know are interested in any kind of mystery like that. Was it? Did the guy? I guess the story ended. The guy was trying like the sewer for $8,000 or $9,000 in back pay for firing him based on evidence that a ghost told her that he was stealing. I think that'd be kind of that'd be like the Bigfoot murder guy. It'd be kind of a slam dunk case.
You'd think, that was the last I heard, that they were sort of like dueling legal challenges and shit. And like I'm sure she kind of challenged some, back on something or whatever. And it seemed like it was something that's going to have to be wound up settled in court. Although with her losing the business license, and I don't know. Some people made it sound like she was having a mental break because she was so like punchy on social media and shit. And so I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Being around a house like that.
Yeah.
Being around that atmosphere, a house like that, however much you want to ascribe to evil spirits or whatever, even just the psychological impact of saying, I manage a house with evil spirits in it. It's
right. Exactly.
It might get you to identify too much with what's going on there or what supposedly was going on there.
Right. Yeah. Because some people were like, look, don't make fun of this lady right now because she's behaving in a way that's worrisome. That's probably the best way to put it. I don't know what the fuck, That's the extent of my knowledge of that.
Maybe it's the same thing as UFOs. I mean, I've my friends and I were, we always say, if you've got a loose thread and you get into UFOs enough, the UFOs will pull on that loose thread till you unravel. So maybe it has something that has the same kind of application in the ghost hunting community. Yeah,
entirely possible. The next thing was probably my personal highlight of the year, along with Paramania, which was awesome. But the eclipse that happened in April. I remember you and Kutch and Steve Ray had all seen the last one, and Kutch was like particularly enamored with it and was like just talking about how amazing it was. And so when it came around again, I was like, I gotta see this because I need to see what all the fuss is about. And it was closer for me. I got to go just right up to Vermont and see it, and it lived up to everything I had been told and more. It was like a close to a life-altering experience. It was like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. And if I ever have the opportunity to even, to see it again, it won't be around America for a long time. But if somehow it came up where it's like, hey, do you want to go to Belize for the fucking solar eclipse? I would consider it. Like it was that. I want to see it again. I want to see it again because it was like,
yeah, me too.
like looking at fucking the eye of God or some shit. It was like this rare fucking thing I've never seen in my entire life, and never like Kutch likened it to a UFO, and I definitely could see that.
Yeah, we talked about that. I did with Kutch.
Yeah.
He said, now I know what people have a paranormal and UFO experience feel like. If you didn't know that this was coming, you didn't know what it was, you would shit yourself. You would go crazy.
Yeah.
And then the sun comes back, and no wonder people thought, oh, we've been given a reprieve by the gods because the sun came back. And I saw the one 5 years ago? What was it? 2018 or 17? I saw that one. It was the place where I think in southern Missouri or something like that was. The two paths were the exact. So if you were in St. Louis, the path went through St. Louis both times.
Yeah. There were some places that crossed over. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this one I drove. So that one I went with Sigrid, my late wife. We went out there and we stayed at Ken Thomas's house. Ken Thomas, the publisher, Ken Thomas, the publisher of Steam Shovel Press. And he took us on a paddle steamer down the Mississippi, and we saw it from the middle of the Mississippi River, which was really amazing. Awesome. While we drank mint juleps. And
where'd you see it this year?
This year, I drove to Texas.
Oh yeah, okay, all right,
yeah, with John Hagenbrenner from the Church of the Subgenius, and we stayed at Ivan Stang's ranch in Texas, who was also like basically the founder of the Church of the Subgenius. Yeah, and I slept in the Subgenius archives on an office table. And anyway, but the day of the eclipse, it was like cloudy. It's going to be cloudy. And then the day before, it's like, okay, it might be partially cloudy. You might get lucky. We wake up, it's fog everywhere, it's cloudy. And as it gets closer to the eclipse, the sky starts clearing up. By the time the eclipse started, it was absolutely clear.
Nice. Yeah.
So we just sat on a hillside, like, I don't know, 5 or 8 of us, in lawn chairs with the glasses on. And everybody there except me, it was the first time they'd seen it. And I would love to see it again. The only problem is, you buy a ticket to Belize. What if it's suddenly cloudy there? It's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you almost got to like luck into it, kind of.
Yeah, the St. Louis one, it was cloudy too. And as the guy, the boat paddle wheel captain, he said, it's starting to cloud up south of us where we thought we were going to go. I'm just going to park the boat here. So he turned the boat around and just faced it into the current and left it going so that we were basically staying in one place on the river. Yeah. And we waited for the eclipse there. And it was good that he did, because it seemed like it was cloudy all around us except where we were. I could see clouds almost everywhere else. And so not like there was a hole in the clouds, but you could see like 10 or 15 miles away, there was cloud cover. So it was amazing. Both times I got really lucky to see it. But yeah, it's totally life altering kind of thing to see.
Yeah. And it's like, it is like a UFO in a way, because it's like, you can't really, if you haven't seen it, like there are people listening who haven't seen it. And it's like, you can't even really properly describe like how it feels to see something so surreal and just how like worthwhile it is. Like that was kind of my thing, because it was like, this is kind of a long drive up to Vermont, and and I didn't know really what I was getting in for. And like even this fucking lady at like the Denny's where we ate lunch, we were talking about how we were up there and everything, and the town I stayed in was going to be 99%. So that's like how we just drove like an hour north to see it in totality. And she's like, well, it's going to be 99% here. That's like practically the same. It's like, lady, no, like I didn't realize this, till
it's not practically the same.
It's like completely not at all. Yeah. Like it's like the totality is a completely different fucking animal. And the 99 is like, oh, it's kind of dark. It's getting kind of dark here, because even
you can't look at 99%,
right?
But you can look at 100%.
Yes, exactly. That was it. It was like, and then once the thing's over, like when it goes to like 99.9%, it pops back and everything is like, whoa, it's crazy how just that tiniest like little sliver of the fucking sun is enough to like blow out the whole fucking thing. It's crazy. It really is. It was.
Yeah, it hurts to look at it, even if it's 99%. It's so weird.
Yeah.
You can't really look at it. You can't just like, oh, I don't need glasses. It's 99%. Yes, you do.
Yeah. It's incredible. It really is. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I still think about it. Look, especially like right around this time of year, looking back on the year, it's just like, yeah, that was pretty fucking awesome thing to experience this year. It was really, really something else.
Yeah, I do recommend it. Big fan.
Yes. Now let me see. The last story of note it was kind of also. Well, I'll just tell you. Then there was a monolith found in Colorado. Well, first there was one found, I think, in Nevada, and then that kind of was just nothing to it. And then this other one in Colorado popped up like a week later on a farm, like that has an ice cream stand, and I think that maybe they probably did it because then they tore it down like 2 weeks later because too many people were coming to their fucking farm to see it and traipsing through all the shit and just being nuisances and parking, where they shouldn't be parking. And so, yeah, I was hoping, because I do love a good craze, I was hoping that this would be the return of the monoliths, but it never went anywhere past the second one in Colorado. And selfishly, partly why I put this in here was just to sort of express the hope that there would be, like, why don't we, I wish we would have crop circles in America. I think I've complained about this on the show before.
Yeah, we do, but they're really sporadic.
Yeah, no, you know what I mean, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
I want to see like 5 or 6 crop circles like pop up in Iowa or in the Midwest or something. Like that never happens. Like there hasn't been an American.
It's a pretty localized art movement.
yeah, it's just over in England, it seems. So because the monolith thing was like it turned into like a crop circle for them. Like that when farmers have crop circles, they're like, fuck off, this is awful, I lost all my crops. If they're not in on it, usually they aren't. And it's and people won't stop coming to my property and they're fucking it all up and everything. So I mean, I don't hope for that for anyone, but I do hope that, like, even if it's what you should do it on the behest of the farmer, because otherwise you're committing a crime and fucking you knowing the way it is here in America, you'll probably get caught and go to jail. Like somehow in England, they don't, I don't know how they can't catch these people who are doing it, but maybe it's kind of one of those like, oh, it's like we kind of like just let it go. It's just a natural thing or whatever. But I feel like here in America, they catch you like really fucking quickly. So if you do make a crop circle, do it at the behest of a farmer. But it would be really, I don't know, it would just be cool to see them here in America. It would bring just a little mystery to the country a little bit.
Were you there when I did that at Paul Kimball's thing? Well, actually, it wasn't Paul Kimball, but he invited us to the Liverpool.
Yeah, Liverpool event.
I talked about crop circles. Not that I knew a lot about them, but I did a buttload of research before I did it. Talked to a bunch of people, pro and con, and I figured for myself, I figured that. Like 99% of them or more, maybe not that much, but a great majority of them are pretty much they're people making them.
Yeah.
And of course, I know people that make them. And the thing is, I gave that lecture and I said, people's like, well, you can't do that in the night. And I showed a video of people like at night on night vision doing it as an experiment. Can we do an elaborate crop circle in like 4 hours? Like 4 people could do a pretty good one. And this was just people just doing it for a camera, not people that are good at it. And the fact that the like they keep growing after they're bent over, it's like, well, that's what some of these crops do. You can bend them over, but they'll keep growing. And where they get broken, like the busted nodes, that's like, it can be caused by microwaves or something, but it can also be caused by people stepping on them.
Yeah,
or bending them so they break. It's not so it's not completely unexplained, but most of it I think is, and I think there are legitimate quote unquote crop circles, especially since they've been. The other thing is I went back through history. It's like these have been around since. Well, I mean, you think about the mowing devil, but there were mysterious circles like circles in the middle of the countryside during World War II, and pilots were like, "What is?" They thought it might be some kind of Nazi thing where they were trying to mark out where they were going to, like, navigation or places to bomb, or places to bomb or whatever. And then, a woman said she saw one being formed in the 30s and she stuck by her story. And this was like, I think before the craze, it was in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to the end of the lecture and everybody got mad at me. Like, most of the audience were pissed off. And I was like, I'm not trying to. If you look into it, you see that a lot of them were made by people. And but it doesn't completely solve the mystery. Are you still there, Tim?
Yeah. You popped out for a minute. You kind of broke up and then you popped up, but I think you're
okay.
Right.
If you look into it, you can find out that a lot of them are man-made. But also, there's I actually said there was a guy that flew over a crop circle or flew over an area near Stonehenge with an airplane sometime in the 90s, and when he flew back later during the day, the same day, there was a circle there. There was a formation. It's like, well, nobody came out and made that. If you believe that. And then there's, of course, I guess, an account of people saying they saw one being formed, and who knows? But I don't think it's completely solved, but most of them are made by people stomping down crops. They're pretty easy to make. It's harder to make the more elaborate ones. So people have been doing this for so long that it becomes easier to do these things and do them quickly and do them accurately.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I fall. It's like a largely solved mystery. But there's still like a sliver of sort of unknown. There's still some peripheral unknown aspects.
Yeah, I even included a story that hadn't been told before about a friend of mine that went to a crop circle, and he went out, looked at it, and he's like, "Okay." I mean, he was pretty much sure that it was man-made. But when he left, he met some weird guy that was coming to the gate to see. First thing he thought was, wow, I hope no cops are coming by and saw me trespass. And as soon as he thought that, a police car came by on one of the little roads. And then a guy came up and said, is the crop circle here? He said, yeah, go just climb through that fence. And the guy said, I don't know how to do that. Like, you just bend over and get underneath the bar and go.
Weird.
And then he said the guy came over and started talking to him and acting strange. He said when you see a leaf hanging from a spider web, they were walking together. The guy stopped and he said, "What's that?" He said, it's a leaf hanging from a spider web. It happens all the time. And he said the guy stopped and went around it, like gave it like a wide berth, looking at it the whole time, like he was scared of it, and then kept walking. And then this is out in the middle of the field somewhere, and he said, okay, well, I got to go. And he just walked off into a forest.
Jesus.
And this is a man-made crop circle, obviously made by people, but this weird thing happened to him there. It's like, so anyway, that's a mystery. Like a lot of this stuff, it's not cut and dried. UFOs aren't cut and dried. Bigfoot isn't cut and dried. The paranormal isn't cut and dried, no matter how people want to spin it. There's always a mystery there. And not, I guess people want a mystery, but it's the UFO thing is true and not true, and full of fakery and full of things that are not fakery. Paranormal, like psychic research, people fake stuff, and then real stuff starts happening. And I'm pretty much convinced of this because I've talked to people that have gone through this. And it's like it's this weird area of belief and not belief, and real and not real, and it's fascinating.
Yeah. Now the sad part of the year in review. One moment there. Let me see. The sad part of the year in review, the in memoriam part of the show. So I only had 3 names that I picked out from. And if I missed anyone, I apologize. I just we kind of threw this one together this year in review this morning here on the day after Christmas. But these are the 3 big names. Either I knew them, interacted with them, or knew of them, or I think people will kind of catch the drift here. We'll do them alphabetical order. Bruce Maccabee passed away this year. Very sad. For folks who are not old timers like us, I kind of always think of Bruce Maccabee as like the Scottie Pippen to Stan Friedman's Michael Jordan. Sort of like, or I don't know, like I don't know what Beatle you'd liken him to, but sort of like there was Stan, and then like Maccabee was kind of like the on the side there or something, like the Beatles and the Stones or something like that. Or But yeah, he was like, his shtick was the photo analysis. That was his thing, right? He was a photo analyst.
Yeah, he was optical physicist, worked for Navy, maybe naval intelligence, some department of the Navy. And he was basically a photo analyst for UFO pictures. The thing is that he, once in a while, he'd do something strange, like the Gulf Breeze thing was very, once again, strange, real seeming stuff and absolutely fake stuff mixed in. But he examined some of the pictures, which were kind of sketchy to begin with, Ed Walter's pictures, and declared that they were genuine. And they actually depicted something strange. And I think he might have been the only person that said that was of his caliber. And I got the feeling he was doing this because he was supposed to. Like somebody, I don't know. I mean, because I don't think he'd be taken in by something like that if he was that kind of a person, if he had that kind of training. And or maybe he did really think they were real, but I didn't think a lot of those photographs, I thought some of them were staged. And he said all of them were genuine. And that kind of made me wonder, does he have some kind of deal like Bill Moore had, or a few other people that never got mentioned had, like, okay, we'll give you information, or we'll keep you on, or give you access to information in exchange for, why don't you just, keep the mystery around some of these pictures that were taken near, admittedly, Gulf Breeze is near, I guess, a big military base, or a couple of them. So who knows? And
that's interesting. Yeah. Well,
I mean, I think he's an amazing researcher. He made incredible contributions, but he made me wonder a few times.
Yeah. And like I said, for folks, who are new to all this, like major player, like in the, I want to say like 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Just like one of the big names in UFO world. And I think he was part of the aviary, right?
I'm not sure, but I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe. People say aviary. Yeah. I mean, people say aviary, and it's like, well, aviary. Yeah, I think he was. No, Hal Puthoff was Owl. Maybe he was Pelican. I don't remember. But anyway, it wasn't an official group. It was just a bunch of people, government affiliated and some not, that were interested in UFOs. And Moore and Chandray gave them names so that they could talk about them on the phone and not reveal who they were talking about. And they weren't any official thing. They were, just a completely unofficial group of people, I think, that were trying to find out what the UFO thing was, thinking they could do it through their connections. And none of that ever came true. But they did hang out for a while and communicated with each other for a while. And I don't even think they considered themselves a group. But it was just a bunch of people those two researchers knew, so they just called him the aviary.
Yeah.
And so, Maccabee, I think you're right. He was part of that group, and he was doing the same thing. I want to find out what's going on through my connections. And if I got it, maybe that was part of it. If I got to do something where I tell people something's real when it's fake, then I'll do it because I'm trying to figure out something on my own, and that's part of the deal. And I hate to say something about somebody when he has no way to defend himself. But it's. I'm not saying he was evil. I'm just saying I think there was more to him than people really knew about his discernment with UFO photos. Where, probably 99% of the time he was giving an honest effort, because he debunked a bunch of UFO photos too.
Yeah, well, there's weirdness about a lot of that stuff. It's kind of like Stan. It's like, why did Stan, like everybody else kind of was like Stan, this MJ12 thing is. But he was all about MJ12. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't think Stan was on anybody's payroll. I just think he absolutely sincerely believed what was going on. And also, I never saw Stan like turn around and say, hey, I was wrong. Maybe he did, but that he had a lot of stake in talking about MJ12 like it was an actual thing and an actual group, and wasn't just something made up for the Eisenhower briefing document. Who knows?
Yeah, the MJ12 thing was always kind of just like, oh, he's really everybody else like completely wrote it off, but he still championed it right up until the end. So it was
Who knows? A lot of people have blind spots. Maybe. Yeah,
exactly.
You keep a blind spot in for your favorite things or the things you love. So maybe that's what he did. I don't know.
Could very well be. Sean David Morton passed away like last week. So
yeah,
pretty recently. This not much to say about that. Just that, like, I remember you always tell a story about like you had the event and it was like they had running parallel tracks or whatever, and they fucking put you up against Sean David Morton, and he fucking drew all these people and shit. And
he interrupted my presentation. What was one of those things where you give a presentation for free and then people pay for workshops, which I think is a terrible thing to do to people.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was there doing that, and he walked in he gave his presentation, left. I'm doing my presentation. He walked in the middle of it, like into the middle of the floor, in the middle of the audience, and says, "Does anybody know where my talk is? They didn't tell me." And I had to stop, and I said, "Sean, I'm giving a presentation here. What are you doing?" He said, "I just need to know where I need to go. Anybody that wants to, come and see my presentation." He just basically came in to interrupt mine so he could get more publicity for his. And then I went and did mine, and there were 2 or 3 people in my presentation. So they never invited me back. But I walked outside, and Morton was sitting outside the door of where I was giving my presentation. And there were like 30 or 40 people gathered around him while he gave this informal talk. And
Jesus.
It wasn't even jealousy. It's just like, how rude can you get? And that's not the only time. He did some dickish things to me or around me multiple times. And so he was probably only one of the few people in ufology I actually didn't like at all.
Yeah.
I never really said anything about him or uncovered anything about him. That was Royce Myers. He did a great job of uncovering a bunch of Morton stuff, to the point where Morton tried to sue him, and he lost because he couldn't prove anything that Royce Myers had said was untrue. So
but
he went on.
No, he was Sean David Morton was like an odd character, kind of like his whole. I think he claimed to be psychic. I think that was the basis of a lot of his thing. He was a psychic. Self-proclaimed, and then I think he also said he was a remote viewer and that kind of stuff, and was mixed up with UFOs and mixed up with a lot of shit.
Anytime something got popular, he'd said he was into it for years.
Yeah, like in the 90s and the early aughts, and then he, this should be a Netflix series because then he got.
You're right.
In trouble with the feds. For money issues. I don't know.
Yeah, defrauding people. He said he could predict the stock market, had a lot of people give him money. He said, "I give you no guarantees, but I'm a psychic." Then, of course, everybody lost all their money.
Right.
And so the Securities and Exchange Commission went after him for that. They couldn't make the charges stick. They arrested him when he was coming off of a boat where he was speaking at one of those floating UFO conventions.
Yeah.
And then later he tried to defraud the IRS out of I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars. He filed a false tax return.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Filed a false tax return, and finally the feds came down on him. I went to a couple days of that trial. It was actually right before the Paramania in LA. I actually said, "You guys want to go see Sean Morton on trial?" And he was like, "Nah." But I actually took the subway downtown, went to the courthouse, went in the courtroom, and sat in the audience and watched him defend himself like a moron.
Yeah. Then he got convicted.
Terrible.
And he went on a fucking run.
Yeah, he jumped bail. Yeah.
Yep. He was on the run for 9 months or something like that. Then they caught him.
Yeah. And I went to his sentencing too, which was another pathetic display. He was in chains and had the Riverside County Jail orange jumpsuit on, and I saw him go over to one of the guards and said, "Could you take these chains off at least for the trial?" And they said, "No way, those are coming off. Sit down, Mr. Morton."
Yeah, well, dude, you go on the run. What do you expect? Then he came back. So then he was in prison for a while.
Yeah, they let him out
during
early
COVID.
Yeah, for health reasons.
Then he I don't know how this happened, but then it went around that he died 2 years ago, back in late September of 23. A lot of people thought he had died. It was like a lot. It was really going around. And then it turned out that he didn't die. And then he did die last week. So again, Netflix series, someone from Netflix, if you're listening, that dude's whole life would be a show.
Yeah, I'm sorry I have nothing nice to say about him because you should speak ill of the dead, but I'm still going to speak ill of him because I found nothing redeeming about him whatsoever. He was just out for himself and out to make money, and he would tell any story he could to do it.
He was an unsavory character. Character. I mean, I never interacted with him. I never met him, never interviewed him, never even emailed him. So no interaction with him, but he was notorious. I did have Royce Myers on VOA to talk about it, like in the very first season of the show. So 20 years ago. That's how he was like. And even then, he was kind of on the tailspin of his popularity and shit. So it was, he was a character. He was a character for sure.
I think Art banned him off the show once for life one time. I can't remember why. Art Bell.
Yeah. So. And the last one is a friend of yours, more so than me. I had him on the show a couple of times, Chris O'Brien, but I did not get the chance to hang out with him offline or anything. But you were good friends with Chris O'Brien, hung out with him and stuff, and had known him for a very long time. So, and we lost him, I want to say like in November or so. Yeah,
something like that. It was in November. He had caught a respiratory illness when he went to Southeast Asia with one of David Childress's like World Adventure Tour things. Because for years, he lived at David's place in Arizona, was kind of the caretaker and fix-it guy and all that. That's like he had a place to live, and I guess he got a salary for doing work for David. And then at one point, I guess they got in some kind of argument or disagreement, and Chris left. And he moved back to upstate New York. But the entire time he was, after this, he was having breathing problems. I remember, because I'd see him after this, and when I'd see him, he'd be like, occasionally he'd get just like, Chris, you need to go to the hospital. He goes, no, I'll be okay. He had problems breathing for the rest of his life after that. That was like 10 years ago. So he survived with this COPD, after effect of his disease for a while. And he eventually he helped James Fox, I guess, with some of his films, like in post-production, doing consulting, doing some editing, doing some research. And then Ron James from MUFON, he was staying at his place in Arizona when James was away for the weekend going to the Sol conference. I saw him there. And when before he got back, he found out that Chris had gotten in a car wreck and died. And what he said was, I think that Chris had a breathing attack where he couldn't breathe. And he either lost consciousness from not being able to breathe or had a heart attack and passed out, and the car just went out of control and hit a big stone sign. He actually put a picture of it up online. Did you see it?
Yeah, it was a sign for like a church or something. And
it was a Church of Christ. That it knocked the T off, so it said Church of Chris.
Yeah, it was very very fitting, sort of spooky but cool thing, I guess you could say. He would have
been happy that picture came up. I mean, he had, like I said, I wrote up a little obituary for him for my for the Radio Mysterioso group on Facebook, and I just told him. I mean, what I remembered most was we would crack each other up constantly. He was really funny and saw the humor in all of this, although he was very serious about his cattle mutilation research starting in the late 70s, one of the few people out in the field. He said that whatever you thought about Linda Howe, he said, I totally respect her for teaching me how to go out and do these investigations because she was good at it. And she knew how to talk to people to do these investigations. This was before she became an Art Bell regular and all this is when she was doing this is like
Strange
Harvest stuff.
Her entry into the world of the strange,
And Chris also introduced me to David Perkins, who became a really good friend, at least in the last 6-7 years of his life when I knew him. And Chris considered Perkins his mentor. And they both died within a year of each other, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I saw David Perkins about 3 weeks before he passed away, and actually interviewed him, and that's part of the stuff I want to post when I start doing the show again here in a couple of months. The last interview with David Perkins. But anyway, yeah, Chris introduced me to Cliff Mahooty, the Zuni guy, who would be at conventions talking about Zuni lore and UFOs. Another great guy. He also passed away. But
I mean, every year we
changed.
remember a lot of people. So it's like
He changed the landscape on counter mutilations. I think he was probably the authority on it, and he never stuck with one theory. He just said there's so many. The only thing that makes sense about mutilations is that they don't make any sense, and I respected him for that too. He never came to a definite conclusion because there were so many that could be drawn from all of his research. And so in that way, he was quite honest. He was honest and open-minded, which I think is rare.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed having him on the show. And actually, I had Bruce Maccabee on way back in the day too. So,
good for you.
Yeah. So farewell to those guys. It's like I said, every year it's sad. We've remembered a lot of people over the last 18 years here on the show. Or 16 years. So the last 16 years since we started this in 2008. Stan, Brad Steiger, Jim Mars, just all kinds of people that we knew and loved and miss. So, Bruce and Christopher O'Brien, and yes, even Sean David Morton. We'll add him to the list of,
yes.
Fare thee well. And,
he made a name for himself, and hopefully if there's an afterlife, he's doing okay in it. I do not know. Maybe if he was looking for any answers, I hope he found them. I doubt he was looking for any answers except how to make his next bit of money. But I don't know. I have no affection for the guy whatsoever. I never did.
Right.
So, and I'm not going to say good riddance at all because that's not very nice. But
no, it's it's like I said, he was a classic character. So it's like I hope he's not. I hope wherever he is, if there's a judgment in the afterlife, I hope it's not too harsh. That might be
exactly
the nicest way to put it. He didn't kill anyone,
he wasn't a violent criminal. He just was, he was just a grifter. I mean, that's all he was.
Yeah, just a grifter. Oh man, so that does it, I guess, for 2024. Trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I racked my brain this morning when I was putting the notes together because I'm like, am I missing anything? I even posted on social media to ask, and one person mentioned Tucker Carlson having a demonic incident or some shit, but it's like, I don't even know. No thanks. So,
he said he had, I guess, was like they asked if he had any kind of, he said, well, it probably could have been an alien, but it was probably a demon. And of course, that's his worldview. So, of course, he's going to say that, whether it's true or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Caitlin Zielinski asked if I would address how rabbits are obviously ultra terrestrials. That's given. I mean, that we know that. So that's it. What's going to happen next year? I don't know. This is the most uncertain I've been about a new year in a very long time, and maybe in my entire life. Like,
me too.
I know
in all aspects.
Yeah. It's like I know things are going to be different next year, but I don't know how. But I know things are going to be really different, and I just hope that it's not too bad. I mean, 2024 has been a good year for me personally, which is kind of like it's not really say like, oh, I want to put the year behind. It's like I kind of just want to rush, just get into what, like I want to rip the Band-Aid off. Like, all right, let's just fucking see what's gonna happen here, man. I am tired of waiting on whatever the fuck is gonna unfold in the new year, and but it's been a good year for me, and so I'm happy to be leaving the new year in better health than I had at the beginning of the year, creatively and creatively fulfilled from having done 45 plus something, but all of America's this year. It's been really crazy that I managed to stick through the schedule, except for that month we took off to recharge, but like more Binnall America than I probably ever produced in one calendar year. So it's like, wow, this is pretty crazy. So, I mean, it's been a good year. And I'm hoping the next year turns out, equally good or even better, because that would be awesome. And I know you've got a lot going on. You're talking about relaunching Radio Mysterioso.
Yeah.
And also there's an Apple series or something at the end of the month. I was confused because Kutch said it's on Apple and Amazon, so I don't know or is it just like
maybe it's accessible from Amazon?
Okay.
It's like wait, let me. You're in something, but you don't remember what the actual name of it is.
I want to say it's called like Cosmosis or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I should.
Jay King and Kelly Chase did it. He put together that conference in New York. Yeah, Cosmosis, UFOs in a New Reality. They put together a conference in New York in the last December, and they were also at the first Sol conference in Palo Alto last year. And they interviewed a lot of people there, and I just happened to be at both, and so they interviewed me at the New York event, along with people I can't believe that I got in the same documentary, like Whitley Strieber and oh God, who else is in it?
Kutch.
Yeah, Kutch is in it. How could I be in the same documentary with with Josh Kutchin? Yeah, Mike Masters, Strieber, Diana Pasulka, Jeff Kreipel, among others. Oh yeah, and my favorite UFO video recreation guy, Finn Hanley, did the recreations for them. Their recreations of witness testimony. I think he's probably one of the best people doing that, and has been for the last few years.
And people can watch that now, actually, because it's not now on the day after Christmas, but they can watch it now when they're listening to this Binnall America, because this episode is going to drop on January 1st, and it says here the full season of Cosmosis
December
UFOs
30th,
and a new on Apple TV on December 30th. So you can go and watch that now. I don't know anything about it beyond what Greg said, but it's going to be on Apple TV.
It's other things besides the extraterrestrial hypothesis. I mean, it's like something that my friends and I have been talking about for years. It's like, that's not the only one. So they kind of go into a deep dive into what could it be besides aliens, why, and, and what is the history of it and all that. I mean, from what I've seen, it seems like a good product, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know if I'm going to watch. I'll probably watch it because I know you and Kutch. But it's like generally I kind of avoid those shows because it's like
I do too, actually. Because usually when I watch these things, it's like, yeah, I know, yes, I know.
Yeah,
but that's just me and you and people like that, people we know that it's like, there's not too much. But just to see people talking about something that I've been interested in for quite a while, I think I will actually make an effort to watch it.
Yeah.
So, and not just because I had the luck of being interviewed for it.
And that's it. So RadioMysterioso.com is the website. And people you'll get the word out when you relaunch the show. So
yeah, definitely. I'll just go everywhere. I'll make a whole new push to publicize.
Yeah. Do you have any timetable on that?
I'm trying to get this all up and ready and all that by the end of January.
Oh, good.
That's kind of the goal that I set for myself. Because basically just switching over to a system whereby, sorry, folks, I'm going to have commercials. But it's because one of my jobs, as Tim knows, it's probably going to dry up. And I've been doing this for free for 30 years, I guess intensely for about 15 or 20. And I thought, you know what? I given everybody a lot of free shows, not because I was like, I'm so nice, I'm going to give. I just didn't want to be beholden to anybody or anything. And I'm okay with the deal that I have. And then, of course, I'll probably have a thing where, if you don't want commercials, you can throw me a few bucks a month or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I did. After doing this for almost 25, 30 years, I'd like to get to the point where it kind of helps me pay bills and pay for itself.
Yeah. No, believe me, it's not cheap. It really isn't. So
yeah, and it's actual work, as you know. You have to find people. You have to sign them up. You have to take time out. You have to do editing. You have to, all this stuff. It's a job.
Yeah, it really is. It is, and once you get into the swing of it, I'm looking forward to you coming back. Once you get back into the swing of it, then it becomes a lot easier. Sort of becomes like muscle memory. I think we talked about this before, like long distance running kind of thing. It's like,
I got 6, 8, 10 shows I never put up, so it'll be easy to start up again. It's stuff people never heard before. Interviews.
Yeah. And on that note, I think that's it. Like I said, I can't predict what's going to happen next year. We don't know if UFOs are going to be hot. Someone could shoot a Bigfoot. I don't know. A boat could hit like the fucking Loch Ness Monster. Let's hope something like really, let's just hope next year has something really fucking cool that we can all be happy about.
I hope so.
Yeah, and that's about it. So I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Hopefully, this felt like this was technically had a lot of technical. Hopefully, people don't. Hopefully they don't complain. But if they've stuck through this long, they're probably all right. But thank you for putting up with any technical glitches, Greg, and people listening at home. I don't know what the fuck's going on here, StreamYard, but yeah. And thank you for coming on the show, man, being a part of this tradition. And like I said, well, maybe when you relaunch Radio Mysterioso, even if it is the end of January, we'll get you back on and shortly thereafter, whatever, to alert people through Binnall America and get you on outside the confines of the year in review. And we said this to you before in the past. It's like we definitely got to do a regular fucking show, but it seems like it's just we've been stuck in the year in review tradition for so long. But now that BOA is back and kind of fucking running on all cylinders again, I tend not to. I joke with Kutch because, like, Kutch, I barely ever have him on the show, and he even like gave me shit about it. Apparently, it's like I don't invite my friends. Like, I don't want to fuck up your Tuesday evening, dude. Like, why would I? Why would I don't really tap on people? Because it's like I know you have to give up a lot to do a show and everything, but we're definitely long overdue for just sort of like just a jam session where we break out of the confines of year in review. So. We will do that. We will do that in 2025. Excellent. And thank you.
I totally look forward to it. Thanks for having me on again. I always enjoy doing these things. It's kind of a little signpost every year where it's like, where are we at? Some years we're complaining and bitching and whining. Other years we're like giddy and happy. Other years we're like, oh my, what the hell's going on? So it's great.
Yeah. Well, it's weird, but it's like, it's kind of an interesting legacy to leave back. Like, I don't know who would do it, but there are people that binge shit all the time. I would love it if someone went back. I think we did that. Yeah. Some guy did that. Remember, he sent us the charts and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like binge.
I think that's probably what I was thinking of. Yeah. Well, you kind of lost your way there for a couple of years, and then you guys were back on track, and like,
he was like, happy quotient or some shit. Yeah. I forget his name. With him. We mentioned him last year, I think. Yeah. So he'll have to update things after this year's episode. But thank you again, man. It's been a pleasure, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Tim. Thanks very much.